Hey there, I have an important topic for us today, and that is the idea of being a small city street photographer, the pros and the cons, the advantages and the disadvantages. Can you do it successfully? And I want to talk about it obviously from the perspective of me as a small city street photographer. My channel name is Street Life in Appleton. I am based in Appleton, Wisconsin. We have a population of about 75,000. So obviously from a street photography perspective, I am pretty small. Am I bigger than some cities? Absolutely. But when you think of street photography, Appleton, Wisconsin isn't jumping out, okay? You've got New York, you've got Chicago, you've got London and Paris and Tokyo and all the way to Phoenix, Seattle, Houston. You can go wherever, and where street photography takes place, it's more likely to take place in those big cities than it is in Appleton, that's for sure. So, but there are advantages for me being in a small city like Appleton. I want to talk about the pros first. What are the advantages? And I think one of the biggies is something that can internally motivate you if you are a small city street photographer, is that I think there's more of a connection there. I think you get to know your city better, and so it's more personal for you. And I know this year, just a few months ago, we have a local magazine called Appleton Monthly, and they actually did a full-page article on my first book called Perspectives, which was released last year. And I'll have a link in the description where you can check out my first book. You can check out both my books, but my first book, Perspectives, was a smaller book, but the theme, the idea was to have almost all the images be from Appleton, and that was very appealing to that magazine. That here's a genre of photography that people don't talk about in Appleton, don't think it really exists outside of bigger cities, and it can be done fairly well in a small city like Appleton. So I think it's easier to have a personal connection and make it something where you have more attachment to. I think that's easier in a small city. So some other advantages. It definitely forces you to slow down and take things in and look at things that maybe you in a bigger city you would pass by because it's so hectic. It makes you look outside the box. It makes you look for subject matter that doesn't have people in it, and I think that can be good. It sort of makes you aware, more attuned to your surroundings, because there's sort of less noise and hectic chaos going on around you, that you can slow down and take things in. So I know I was just in Madison recently, Madison, Wisconsin. That's our state capital. And I was at the farmer's market, and I was on State Street, which is one of the busiest streets in Madison. And when it was really busy on a Saturday on State Street, I wasn't used to that. It was almost too busy. It was almost like there's just stuff everywhere, and you don't know where to look first. And you look over here, and should I be over here, and blah, 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 blah. And I think one of the advantages of being in a city, small city like Appleton, is that you are a little bit, calmer, and you slow things down, and you look at things that, I wasn't doing when I was in Madison. So there's some advantages. Now, there's obviously disadvantages. Let's talk about those. I think the biggie for me that makes it difficult and frustrating at times is that I just don't have the sort of the square mileage. I mean, I have a smaller area to sort of cover that's downtown, and that's probably 7 or 8 blocks, and that's it. So when I go down to do street photography, I can cover my entire downtown area probably in 90 minutes. I'm not in Chicago where I'm going to say, well, this week I'm going to cover this area, and the next week I'm going to go to this totally different area. I can't do that. And that can be very frustrating, because it's like, well, I was just there last week and I just walked the entire downtown, and I didn't get anything very well, and I'm going to be covering the same stuff again. And so that can be difficult sometimes to get internally motivated. So that can play a big factor in subject matter. Obviously, there's not as much subject matter. The good part about Appleton is that there are businesses that come and go. There's things that are being torn down, and we have a lot of construction taking place, and so the environment changes, and so there's stuff happening, and that's good. So because the square mileage, like I said, just isn't there. So subject matter isn't really there. There's not as much there as in obviously New York or London or wherever. So And the second disadvantage, actually two and three, well, I guess the second disadvantage, there's multiple layers to this, but there's not as many people. So if you're kind of in this mindset that it has, you have to have people in street photography, then a small city is going to be really difficult for you because there's just not as many people around. If you have this shot set up and you're waiting for someone to come through, it just may not happen. You may have to wait a different day or wait 45 minutes or whatever. And so that can be difficult. And so the idea of putting people in shots, which I like to do, I like to have the human element. There's times where it's just not busy enough, and it's just there's maybe dozen people walking around. That's it, and so that can be frustrating at times. The other disadvantage of not having as many people around is that you're definitely going to get some more glances, some more second looks. Like, why is there somebody with a camera, and are they going to take a picture of me, or what are they taking a picture of that's so interesting? And so you do get more glances, you do get more second looks. When I was in Madison, I was at the farmers market and on State Street, both at night and during the day. This didn't happen at all. It didn't happen once. I didn't see anybody looking at me, giving me a second look. There's always something going on. So the idea of someone taking a picture just isn't a big deal. And I think it gives you a lot of freedom to just sort of whatever, I'm just going to go shoot. I really don't care. And in a smaller city like Appleton, sometimes there can be some awkwardness there, and some of that's my personality too. You sort of have to get over that, but you definitely see more of that in a smaller city, and that can be a challenge. So the last disadvantage, and I put this under disadvantage, though I think I'm going to go back to my advantages, and it could maybe be a disadvantage, but it does sort of force your style. It's just not going to be about people all the time. It can't be. You have to look for other things. You have to look for objects. For me, when there's not as many people around, maybe I find a cool mannequin in a window. Maybe there's some mailboxes on a wall. Maybe there's peeling paint with a lot of texture, things like that. So you're looking for things that maybe wouldn't be seen as, traditional street photography, just because it doesn't have a person in it. So it does sort of force your style in a way, and that can be either good or bad, depending on your perspective, depending on your personality. So, overall, I kind of see that as a disadvantage, but I've tried to turn that on its head and look for cool things. I mean, I have things especially in my second book, where I really kind of opened up the subject matter and was including things that didn't have a human element at all, or a person in it at all. And those can be that's still very good images. So you got to take advantage of what's there, of what your neighborhood or your city is giving you. It's sort of like poker. Here's the hand I've been dealt, and I got to play it the best that I can. So I will give props and a thumbs up to our local Appleton downtown organization of business that is in charge of the downtown area, getting people down to that area, down to the sort of city life, the urban area. They do a really good job with having events down there, having during the summer they have people who paint chairs and are out on the sidewalk. You have sidewalk chalk events. You'll have things like soup walk, where you can walk these different businesses, and ladies night out, and just different things to get people downtown. And when those events are happening, definitely that's a good time for me. I try to get down there, and because things are going to be different, there's going to be more people down there, more opportunities to do neat things. So parades obviously are another one that go right down our main street downtown. So can you do street photography successfully in a small town? Absolutely. My first book is evidence of that. It's just, you have to change your perspective, no pun intended. You do have to, think outside the box, look for different things, but you can definitely do it. If you're in a small city and you're frustrated and you're not sure if you can do it, I was there. I wasn't sure if this was something that I could do, and I found out, the more effort I put into it, the more I looked at other photographers' work that had, photos that didn't look like big city stuff, that were attractive to me. It just gave me more motivation that even though I'm in a small city, I can still do street photography, and you can too if you're in a small city. It's just, like I said, it's just gonna maybe take a little more effort. You got to go out there and shoot, think outside the box, and you can do it. Now, not being in a big city, if I was in a big city, let's say I was in Milwaukee or Chicago even, I could probably do a video on the pros and cons of being a big city street photographer. I'm not sure if it's all rainbows and lollipops being in a big city either as a street photographer. I don't really know that for sure because I don't live in a big city. But so hope that helps you out. Leave me some comments below. If you're in a small city and you're a street shooter, let me know. Like what do you like and don't like about it? Things like that. Check out my links below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the streets, take photos. We'll see you soon with another video. Thanks. Bye-bye.